Hi, it's me. No. 10. The butcher of Kings County Hospital. Kings County Hospital was once one of the most revered places in New York City. It was founded in 1856. At the time, Brooklyn was still its own independent town from Manhattan. The hospital was created by the Brooklyn City Mission, which was dedicated to helping out the impoverished and sick citizens of Brooklyn. Over the years, it became a major teaching hospital for medical students and doctors. With affiliations to the Downstate Medical Center, everything seemed great until Dr. John Kiernan showed up. Dr. Kiernan was hired in 1936 and quickly got a reputation among the residents for being a bit of a butcher. He was known for his cruel attitude towards his patients, and he was very good at what he did either. He botched operations left and right. Then the Great Depression hit, and the hospital was running low on funds. Dr. Kieran had a solution for this. He began experimenting on live patients without their consent. He performed operations that were unnecessary and just plain wrong, all in the name of saving money. He would also do invasive post-mortem examinations on dead bodies, meaning he would perform surgery on corpses to examine their organs. Sometimes he even used living patients for practice while they were wide awake. He was eventually fired, but not before leaving a lasting impression on the hospital. To this day, visitors have reported hearing the sound of surgical instruments in the middle of the night. Some have even claimed to see the shadow of Dr. Kieran performing surgery on a patient. There were also rumors that some of the bodies he experimented on were never claimed. It is possible that these are the spirits haunting the hospital, including a little girl in a Victorian nightgown who is seen wandering the halls. Number 9, the Cursed Chapel, one of the scariest places in Waverly Hills. Sanatorium is on the operating rooms, or the body chute where the corpses were slid around. It is actually the chapel. The chapel was built in 1924, replacing the original wood frame structure that burned down. The new chapel was made out of brick and was supposed to be a symbol of hope for those inside the sanatorium. It took 2 years to complete, and when it finally opened, it was beautiful. But something strange happened every time someone said a prayer inside the chapel. Bad things happened to them. It all started with the first minister who prayed in the chapel after its opening. He fell ill and died suddenly. The next priest who stepped foot into the building met the same fate. And then the next one, and the next one, and so on. Eventually, no one wanted to set foot in the chapel because they were terrified that they would meet the same end as the other ministers. That's when people realized that the chapel was cursed. Some believe that the land the chapel was built on was cursed because it was an Indian burial ground. Others say there was a witch who lived near the property who put a curse on the building. Whatever the reason, it didn't take long for the legend of the cursed chapel to spread. Patients would sometimes beg the nurses to let them come inside the chapel and pray, knowing full well that they may die. The nurses would refuse, of course, but not before being threatened by the patient's ghostly wails in the middle of the night. Number 8, the Lady in the Iron Lung. The Lady in the Iron Lung is one of the most famous ghosts of Waverly Hills Sanatorium. Her name was Helen Viola, and she spent the last 3 years of her life inside the iron lung. If you don't know what an iron lung is, it was basically the main form of treatment for polio back in the early 20th century. It is a device that uses a large tank of air and a set of bellows to help the patient breathe. It sounds kinda simple, but it was actually quite dangerous. Many patients ended up dying from complications of the iron lung, and Helen was one of those patients. She was only 25 when she came down with polio and was placed in an iron lung. After 3 years of suffering, she finally passed away. Her ghost is said to wander the halls of Waverly Hills at night, searching for her killer. Many people have reported seeing her ghosts, including author and paranormal investigator Brian Bethel. While investigating the sanatorium, Bethel heard the sound of chains dragging metal moans, and in front of him was the apparition of a young woman in a nightgown. She dragged herself closer and closer until she was right in front of him. She reached out a hand as if to grab him, and then she vanished. Some believe that Helen is still searching for the nurse who killed her by turning off her oxygen without warning. Others say she is just another one of the many souls trapped inside Waverly Hills. No. 7. The Body Chute. If you ever visit Waverly Hills Sanatorium, you should definitely check out the Body Chute. It's one of the most popular tourist attractions in the area, and for good reason. The Body Chute is a terrifying reminder of the dark history of the building. The body chute is a tunnel that runs from the basement of the sanatorium to a crematorium on the grounds. It was used to transport the bodies of patients who died from tuberculosis. The chute was built in 1926, and it was used for over 30 years. It was designed to be a more efficient way of transporting bodies, instead of having to carry them. The idea was that the bodies would be placed in bags and then slid down the chute. They would then be cremated, and the ashes would be scattered on the grounds. Of course, this system had its problems. The chute was often blocked, and the bodies would end up sitting in the basement for days or even weeks at a time. The smell was so bad that the workers had to wear gas masks. Eventually, the chute was closed in 1959. It is now open to the public, and you can even slide down it yourself. But be careful. Some people have reported hearing the screams of patients being transported through the chute, and occasionally the staff finds human bones in the shaft. And now for number 6. But first I want to give a big shout out to some supporters. Thanks so much for watching and supporting the channel. If you are new here, be sure to join the family. Number 6. Tuberculosis Alley. Tuberculosis Alley is one of the most haunted places in Waverly Hills Sanatorium. It's a long, dark hallway filled with the ghosts of patients who died from tuberculosis. The hallway gets its name from the fact that many of the patients who died in the sanatorium were poor Irish immigrants who worked in close quarters. This made it easy for the disease to spread. By the time the sanatorium was closed, over 60,000 people had died from tuberculosis. Some of their ghosts are said to wander the halls of Waverly Hills to this day. The worst part about tuberculosis is that it's a slow and painful death. It can take months for the bacteria to kill you, and during that time you're in a lot of pain. It is no wonder that the ghosts of these patients are angry, and they want revenge on the living. If you're ever in the area, be sure to check out the TB ward. You might be able to see one of the ghosts for yourself. 5. Ominous operating room. Waverly Hills Sanatorium was once a state-of-the-art medical facility. It was designed to treat patients with tuberculosis, but it was also home to some of the worst medical experiments in history. The operating room is one of the most haunted places in the entire building. It's filled with the ghosts of patients who were tortured and murdered inside the sanatorium. The operating room is also where many of the bodies for the body chute came from. Visitors to the operating room have reported seeing all sorts of things, including ghosts, instruments moving on their own, and disembodied voices. It's also not uncommon to hear screams and pleas for help coming from the room. If you want to see the ghost of Dr. John Brinkley, then you need to visit the operating room. He was the sanatorium's physician in the 1930s, and he was responsible for some of the most heinous crimes committed on the premises. He was eventually fired after lobotomizing a patient without permission, but he continued to operate illegally in the area. His ghost is said to haunt the operating room, along with the ghosts of his victims. For shadow people. Shadow people are one of the most common paranormal phenomena reported at Waverly Hills Sanatorium. These are dark, shadowy figures that seem to lurk in the corners of your vision. They can be seen moving through the halls or standing at the foot of your bed at night. One of the most famous shadow people spotted at Waverly Hills was the Shadow Man. He was seen by hundreds of patients and staff members between 1920 and 1961. The Shadow Man is said to be the spirit of a janitor who died in the sanatorium. He was killed by one of the doctors who was trying to experiment on him. The doctor injected the janitor with a new serum, but it turned out to be deadly. The janitor died shortly after, and his ghost has been haunting the sanatorium ever since. 3. Unfinished business. When Waverly Hills Sanatorium was built, it was supposed to be a place of healing, but it quickly became a place of pain and suffering. The staff at the sanatorium were overworked and underpaid. They were constantly short-staffed, and there was never enough supplies. It was a thankless job working at the sanatorium, but someone had to do it. Many of the staff members became so attached to the patients that they treated them like family. When a patient died, it was devastating. The staff would often hold funerals for the patients, even though they knew it was a pointless gesture. Some of the staff members even kept mementos of the patients, such as their clothes or personal belongings. They did this to remember the patients by and to honor their memory. When Waverly Hills was finally closed, many of the staff members were heartbroken. They had to leave behind the only home they'd known for decades. Some of them never recovered from the loss. They became depressed and died soon after the sanatorium was closed. Others simply disappeared. Nobody knows what happened to them, but it is believed that they stayed on the grounds of Waverly Hills so they could be near the patients who were still there. No. 2. Bloody Mary. Bloody Mary is one of the most famous ghosts in all of literature, and she's also one of the most terrifying. She's the ghost of a young girl who was murdered by her father. Her spirit is said to haunt Waverly Hills Sanatorium, and she's one of the reasons why it's so creepy. The story goes that Mary was a happy and healthy child until her father started abusing her mother. When Mary tried to stop her father, he killed her in a fit of rage. Her ghost is said to roam the halls of Waverly Hills, looking for anyone who might be able to help her. Some say that the ghost of Bloody Mary can be seen standing at the end of the hall. She's always wearing a Victorian nightgown, and she's always covered in blood. Others say that the ghost of Bloody Mary can be heard crying out for help. Her voice is said to be one of the most haunting things you'll ever hear. If you want to see the ghost of Bloody Mary for yourself, then you need to visit Waverly Hills Sanatorium on Halloween. That's when her ghost is most active. No. 1. Ghosts in the nursery. One of the most heartbreaking stories at Waverly Hills comes from the nursery. The nursery was where the staff took care of the children who were brought to the sanatorium. It was also where many of the children died. The staff of the sanatorium did everything they could to make the children feel loved and cared for. They knew that many of them wouldn't make it, but they still tried. Some of the staff members even took the children home with them so they could be away from the sanatorium for a while. But there were just too many children and not enough staff. Eventually, most of the children died, and their ghosts are said to haunt the nursery to this day. If you want to see the ghosts of the Waverly Hills children for yourself, then you need to visit the nursery on the anniversary of their deaths. That's when their ghosts are most active. Thanks for watching. Which of these stories was your favorite? Let me know in the comments below. See you next time. Bye.